This has been the Experience Network. Experience Network.
Can't even say our own title right.
Hello and welcome to the Experience Network. My name is Matt.
I'm Francis.
And welcome to another installment of this podcast. And today we're going to be talking on a topic that we touched a little bit on in the last episode. Microtransactions.
What was that? I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Microtransactions.
Yeah, that thing that...
Because you can't escape them these days.
That thing that happens to get under the skin of every gamer in this world nowadays. That sounded really, professionally written. It's under the skin of every gamer now.
Really. British now? I mean,
I'll take it.
Microtransactions are an extremely controversial subject that most gamers know about by this point based on recent developments within the gaming industry.
If you haven't heard about them or are living under a rock, microtransactions are functionally you buy a game or you get it for free in some cases.
Yeah.
And then they give you the option to throw more money into it to get either additional content, a chance at getting through content faster, or just to increase your monetary fund within a game. There's more than that, obviously, but that's kind of like the dumbed down version of it, on a basic level of what it is.
And you've probably seen loot boxes or microtransactions in
What's a loot box?
A loot box is something that gives you a random reward after making a monetary purchase that can be through in-game currency or real-life money.
Yes.
Which is... we're going to touch on whether that's good or not, but you've probably seen it in a majority of games. If you play games like Overwatch or if you play games like Hearthstone,
Shadow of War.
Star Wars Battlefront 2 got a lot of flack for it, and that's why it's a big topic nowadays because it gained so much attention on it. Thanks for using a Star Wars title and mucking it up. But
they actually Disney renounced the rights. They took Star Wars off the title. It's now just Battlefront 2.
It's just Battlefront 2. Just be glad it's not Battlefield 2.
Give it time.
Yeah.
But so the big question is, though, obviously, and the reason they've been getting a lot of news lately is the legality of it all. Because you look at it and the question has become, are they gambling? And because obviously, it has a similar vein, obviously, where you put money in and you have a chance of getting something really good out of it. But is that really gambling?
See, here's the thing that a lot of people get at. A lot of people consider it gambling, especially in the political views, because it requires spending money for random rewards, which you do in casinos as well, and you can get either a really crappy reward or no reward at all, or a really, really good one.
Or a jackpot,
which is what people consider a gambling model. The issue with this is usually you can take whatever you win from a typical gambling model and turn it in for an even better prize or for just straight cash or stuff like that.
Well, the reason why people are even connecting stuff like that to gambling is because there are third-party kind of black market-y websites on the internet now where you can sell stuff that you've won through these gambling websites, or not these gambling websites, but from these games. Like, we all know the infamous, or a lot of people know the infamous CSGO gambling ring that was going on where you could sell your skins or bet your skins functionally.
That's true.
It just becomes a system where, yes, it can be abused by third parties, but in itself, I still do not believe that is gambling, and obviously that is the point of contention now.
I believe that it has gambling elements in it, but not necessarily. It cannot be defined as gambling.
Right.
It has the elements a lot of people have claimed that it causes gambling addictions and preys on people with gambling tendencies, but I don't think that's very true. Because it's not like gambling in the way that you're spinning and you're spending money on something that you could win. You're always getting something, even if that something's crap.
There are I almost said vending machines, slot machines.
Yeah.
That, man, some vending machines are kind of slot machines, but there are some slot machines where you are guaranteed a payout. It's just almost always going to be less than what you put in.
Yeah.
But the big thing is, though, and the point I'd want to make is, you pointed out that there are they are gambling-esque, but they aren't technically gambling. But because by calling these gambling, it's kind of like saying if I joined a chess tournament where it's or say you pay, there's a buy-in for a chess tournament, and say it's like $20.
That'd be crazy.
Or probably like $5, but it's some amount of money, and the winner gets a certain amount of money out of it, and say second or third or whatever does that too. I am functionally betting on myself. Is that gambling at that point? I hate the term, but it's a slippery slope.
Yeah, there are definitely arguments you can make but mostly not. You can mostly make the argument that it's not gambling. It's just in the political oh god, I can't speak today. But the political standings, there's more of people who are saying that it is the gambling model, and that's mainly just to get to the appeal of people who don't know what the subject's about.
Right.
And it's very political, like most subjects are.
Well, it's
these days.
because obviously in the legal sense, our laws recently have struggled to keep up with the advancing of technology, and especially in the gaming world. But I'd argue that in many cases, especially now, we don't need to update our gambling laws to account for loot boxes, but we need to it needs to be its own legislation. We can't call it gambling, we can't call it not gambling, because it's kind of in the middle.
Mm-hmm. Now, we've been saying some types of microtransactions, but I feel like we should cover the more specifics of what constitutes a microtransaction.
Okay. Now, I'm actually going to preface this. We both have slightly different definitions in our own minds.
That's true. In our own, because every gamer has their own opinion on loot boxes. And
wait, gamers have opinions? I've never heard of this before.
I'm going to make it clear on the internet. But yeah, microtransactions to me. Loot boxes.
Sounds like a book.
In-game currency that you can buy with real money. So if there was a system like credits or gold that you can buy this amount of gold for this amount of money, then that's definitely a microtransaction.
Crystals
and I also believe that downloadable content is a form of microtransactions.
See, that's where you and I differ.
He does not think this.
I do not personally believe that DLC or expansions for games are microtransactions. I feel like if for something to be a microtransaction, it has to be something that you don't separate people within a game for.
See, for me, a microtransaction is an additional purchase that you make with real life money in addition to a base game.
I understand that. It's just like, in my mind, like, you know how most DLC, especially like even if it's multiplayer maps in a shooter, your community is separated, but like by the people who bought it and the people who didn't.
Yeah, but
I don't think that a microtransaction inherently does that.
I just think that it does. I just think that any type of purchase that's an additional to what's already a base game, and you have to pay more than that $60 value that you already paid for the game,
we'll get to that.
is considered a microtransaction because it's a transaction that's an additional part of what you've already spent. For example, a great example of this is Mortal Kombat X. Came out in 2015, and yeah, fighting game.
If you haven't gotten it yet, he likes fighting games.
It's what I do. But yes. They had 8 DLC characters that were about $5 each, or you could buy them in a pack of 4 each season that they came out. Plus, they had lots of skins and easy fatalities and a lot of microtransactions like that. All of that was considered a microtransaction, including the downloadable content. Even though they reskinned the game and called it Mortal Kombat XL and resold it for having all that DLC, there were still microtransactions on top of that. So, just that kind of downloadable content was a type of microtransaction to me because I bought the base game and I had to pay additional money to buy 8 more characters as they came out for $5 each. 8 times 4 is 40, so I ended up spending $100 on all the characters in the game.
I guess the big difference between us is like I wouldn't call DLC characters a microtransaction, or I wouldn't call them not a microtransactions. I would call those microtransactions. That was a really roundabout way to say that, but you get my point.
As long as
my difference is when it comes to DLC expansions, like the Taken King for Destiny, a Halo map pack, stuff like that, where it's like, oh, even Halo map packs. It's like if it's a story expansion to something, especially like Destiny or World of Warcraft, I think it's not a microtransaction.
Well, here's where I'm going to differ with you. I think a microtransaction, they're put in there to increase the gaming experience for it. And with an expansion like the Taken King, you're getting just like with think about in Overwatch standards where you're only getting cosmetic items, but you're getting them in a version of loot that has a random drop, which is a lot like the bosses in Destiny that give you random drops of weapons and stuff.
Guys,
when you beat them. But anyway, by purchasing the Taken King, let's have you versus a guy who never purchased the Taken King, a guy who has had vanilla Destiny the whole time.
I prefer chocolate Destiny.
And by the way, if you still own vanilla Destiny and never upgraded, kudos.
Buy the Taken King.
No, just kudos to you. Kudos to you for not being able to enjoy the game without all the stuff that made it better.
I mean, you can't not argue that the Taken King made the game a lot better.
Yeah, another discussion for another time.
Next week.
But anyway, the downloadable content for the Taken King introduced a new boss, a new zone,
a new raid,
a new mission. That gave you new loot that we hadn't seen before. New weapons, new
And
balances.
increase level cap.
The only way you were able to get those new balances and level cap and items and bosses and raids was to buy them through real world money, which is within itself a microtransaction.
Well, you didn't buy them. You bought access to them. You still had to play the game.
Yeah, you still had to play the game, but still, even if I was buying in real time, if I was buying a bunch of loot boxes or card expansions, I'd still have to play to use what I just bought.
Right.
So it's the same. It's basically the same thing on it.
Well, that is the other thing. It hurts me to say this, but I will not be able to use Hearthstone very much for an example in this because as much as card games are functionally loot boxes or card packs are functionally loot boxes, there's no other way to do that in the card game. Like, you can't, like, imagine doing real life Magic without booster packs. It's just undoable. You can't do it that way.
Yeah, that's just how card games function. Hearthstone's very unique in the way that it's a digital card game, and there aren't too many ones like that are really popular like that.
Yeah, like if Hearthstone were to say also offer a thing where you pay $150 to get every card in an expansion, that's another thing, but that's beside the point.
Yeah, and they don't do that anyway, so
unfortunately. I would pay that legitimately.
This guy.
I like Hearthstone.
He likes Hearthstone. I like fighting games. It's unique.
Cut to the next video where I have him playing Hearthstone again. But there is one thing I want to bring out from Hearthstone though, and that's when a microtransaction system, especially or more so a loot box system, is done well. And that is, I think, when people can open their loot box and get it, but they can also, in the case of Hearthstone, disenchant a card that they don't want and use that dust that they got from that to craft other cards. It's not a 1-to-1 ratio, obviously, but you can use it still.
This also brings me to another game that has randomized like loot boxes or reward system in Heroes of the Storm, which is another Blizzard game. And it's very similar because you can spend in-game currency that you gain very well by just playing matches to re-roll your loot box to get items that you might want instead. Or if you got like a really bad loot box that had or chest or whatever it's called in Heroes of the Storm. I haven't played it in a while. But
I need to play it again.
Yeah. You can re-roll it for a certain amount of in-game currency and have a better chance to get what you want.
Well, that's like how, and this is something I can't believe we didn't even think about when we were doing like our little discussion beforehand, but League of Legends has not necessarily a loot box system, though they do to some extent.
Yeah.
For them, it's more of you have your in-game currencies. There's like 2, maybe even 3 now. I haven't played it in a little while. But there are these in-game currencies that you use to buy access to heroes. They have free ones every week, and they have the ones you start with.
Yeah.
But you can still use... Yeah, you can buy that currency with real money, but you earn it at a very good rate within the game.
That's also almost the same exact system as Smite, which has...
You mean 3D? You mean 3D League?
3D League, basically.
That sounded good, actually.
I enjoy Smite. But Smite has free rotations of heroes, meaning you get access to heroes that you don't have through purchasings, and you can still play them and enjoy them just as much as if you own the actual character. I think it's by a weekly basis. I
think it's weekly. Yeah, I give Smite credit too, where you can buy up you can obviously buy the individual heroes with your in-game currency, but I think it was like also $30, and you could just get access to every single hero that will ever come out and has come out.
Yeah, that's a very good business model because you're adding that microtransaction in addition to Smite being a free game,
right?
And that's good. That's
because it's like the way I saw it, I was like, I'm paying $30 for this game functionally by doing this. Yeah, it's worth $30.
A good game that's $30. We're not sponsored by Smite, I swear.
Yet. Smite. So this gets to the other point though, where obviously there are games that use it well. Like what makes it good? What games use it well?
Yeah, we just went over a bunch of games that use that kind of microtransaction business model fairly well.
Good old Smite.
Overwatch has, I'm going to say it, Overwatch has a very good business model for it. Why? Because it's all cosmetic. And I'm sure you've heard people talk about this before, people who play Overwatch. Everything that you buy with real world money is based on stuff that does not affect gameplay. Not at all. It just affects what you want to see. And if there's like an event and you can get specific skins, and I know people who will like pay the full $40 for like 50 loot boxes just to get the skins they want.
Yep.
And hey, if you want to do that,
the power to them. It doesn't matter for the game.
If you have the money to spend, you have the right to spend that money in any way that you choose.
And the big thing is, like, there are 2 types of things that I will always be okay with being sold in a microtransaction-y format: convenience and cosmetics. Never directly sell power.
Yeah.
Like, if you take an example like I'm trying to think of good ones. Like single player games, obviously, this is true.
Yeah.
But also stuff like, even to some extent, honestly, Clash of Clans. And I'm using this for an example of the format. Obviously, Clash of Clans is a horrible one for actually running your microtransactions. Do not follow their lead. But this is more the example I'm using. You can buy their gems with money to speed up your stuff and make the game go a little faster. I am okay with that because here's why. And I know I'm going to get a little bit of flack for this. By doing that, you're just skipping a grind. I'm okay with skipping a grind.
Like he said before, that's convenience. So that's something he likes, and I may not agree with that just because I like earning this sort of thing and grind. I enjoy grinds, but
Right.
I
don't do it. I'm just saying that's a good way to do
it. There are
it.
gamers like him. There are gamers like me. That's just kind of how the industry is functioning.
And the difference is, like, I don't buy the convenience ones very often, or really ever, honestly.
Yeah.
But the thing is, them just being in there, it's like, it's fine so long as you don't inflate the grind to make people have to do that.
Yeah. So so we went over a few examples of games that do it well. Let's talk about the many games who do it poorly.
Do we start with the elephant in the room?
He chose poorly.
Do we start with the elephant in the room?
No. Well, like we said before,
Hi, elephant.
This entire debate on microtransactions gained ahead because of the actions of Electronic Arts with Star Wars Battlefront 2. It's how that got to the forefront of political discussion and in a lot of youthful discussions with people.
How's it going, fellow youths?
If I ever get called a youth by a politician, that's the day he loses my vote. But
I think of a few people you shouldn't vote for at that point. But it's like,
fair enough.
Yeah, Battlefront 2. Okay,
let's go over what they did
where do we
wrong.
start?
Yeah. First of all, you may have heard that before the game was sold, during the beta, people found out that it would take a ton of grinding to get to a certain character unlocked in hero mode. So Darth Vader would take approximately 40 hours of gameplay to unlock.
Right.
And they figured this out, and of course there was a massive outrage, as there should have been.
Outrage?
Outrage. As
Just
there
cross
should have
uproar and outrage?
been. Hey, I create words. It's fine.
Okay.
But yeah, there was a massive outrage on it, as there should have been, like
Yeah.
I said. And 40 hours of gameplay is absolutely ridiculous to unlock one character. And then it would reset. So you have to unlock another. Then they found out that loot boxes themselves directly affected gameplay by giving you better stats and star cards to put on your heroes or classes to give them either extra abilities, new abilities that other players couldn't have. People who haven't gotten them or spent the money to do it. Plus, people figured out that pay-to-win model was still trash, even though it had the pay-to-win model. You could spend $100 on loot boxes and get
And you might not get stuff, yeah.
Yeah, you'd still get trash. The loot box system was poor because it didn't provide, like, in an Overwatch thing, you're at least guaranteed a legendary once every, like, 5 or 6 or 7 loot boxes.
I mean, hell, even in Hearthstone, you're guared a legendary card every 40 packs, and even then it comes about every 15.
Yeah, like, that's reasonable because then they have epics and commons. In these, you would get, like, one good item every 10
Yeah, you'd get
boxes.
in-game currency out of it.
And you wouldn't even earn them at a very fast rate either. And also, if you tried to grind in, like, the arcade mode or whatever mode that they had to do that, like mission mode, you stopped, if you played for a certain amount of time, you stopped gaining credits, like in the in-game currency, to buy those in-game boxes.
it's like I said before, it reaches a cap where it's like, yes, convenience microtransactions are fine, but using them to the extent where you literally inflate your grind to take even longer in order to incentivize players to buy it, that's when it gets really shady.
It would take, a person said it would take over 1,500 hours just to unlock everything in that game.
But they got a sense of achievement.
But they got a sense of pride and accomplishment.
That's what it was. I knew it was an A word.
Oh man, it's been a while since we've heard about that.
I think they've all gone under a rock.
It's still the most down.
They're all hiding it. Let's be real. They're all hiding in a cave now after all that happened.
Oh my gosh, I don't blame DICE because DICE made
the game. They didn't design.
Yeah, they didn't design
monetization.
They were not in charge of the marketing. That's EA's job.
Yeah,
they were in charge of making the game balance, making the classes. It was a shame too because the game was so hyper.
So hyper?
It was hyped up. It was hyped up.
It's a very hyper game.
My words are bad, but
you know.
Yeah, it was hyped up a lot. Class system, good space combat, a story mode that looked interesting at the time, even though it turned out to be generic.
Good one.
Yeah, it looked interesting at the time because you were playing on the side of the Empire.
Well, it's like I would argue that because I didn't really play the beta because it's all of the uproar. I was like, I don't want to get involved. I mean, I obviously tried it, but you know what I mean. Mm-hmm. The biggest issue I feel like were there free rotations like we had said about the hero mode? Was there?
No.
That's the
No.
big thing. It's like there was no easy way to unlock it.
You got 3 heroes at the start of the game, and then you had to get everyone else.
Exactly. Did you even get to choose the 3 heroes?
I think it was random.
Exactly.
It might have been random.
See, it's like, and I know that I know a lot of people that play Rainbow Six Siege right now, Exhibit A, and I was talking to them about doing like if I should buy it, what mode I should buy, and they were saying now you get like a certain amount of the basic heroes. I think it's all of them actually with this.
Yeah,
with the
nowadays.
basic edition. Yeah, it used to be different, but that's beside the point.
Ubisoft's been kind of getting back on track
Yeah.
with that sort of model.
But it's like you got a certain amount of the basic heroes, and the rest you could unlock over time. I'm like, I just want to play the game. Doesn't matter what heroes I have. But that's the thing with that in this case is there are no, like, the heroes are all on at least a similar enough power level where not getting one doesn't matter that much to the new or even average player.
That's true.
In Star Wars, where not only in Star Wars Battlefront though, where a lot of them are stronger.
These
obviously,
are also iconic characters.
that's the other thing. People are just going to want to play. They can make Darth Vader the weakest character in the game. People will still want to play as him.
Yeah.
Same true with Obi-Wan, with Luke, with
Well, they didn't even have. They added
with Kylo Ren.
Kylo Ren, yeah.
I'm not letting him down.
They didn't even. They had 2 prequel characters, and then they made this game out to be so focused on that. I actually like some of the prequel characters, not so much the movies, but the characters themselves.
I still say Empire War, Revenge of the Sith.
Them
is good.
not having General Grievous in that game is a shame.
Honestly, well, yeah,
Crying shame. At least
Kylo
for
Ren
me.
shame.
But yeah, and they just represent. That game represents everything that people dislike about loot boxes, and that's not even just to like because it was Star Wars. It was more important than the other ones that did the same kind of models.
They aren't the first game
It's
to
just
fuck
literally
it up like this.
The thing is, they're one of the first games to have every instance of it done wrong. Like every time that kind of issue got brought up, there's not even you can't even make a like positive out of it,
Right.
Because every single version of it is just every time they could have made a misstep, they did.
I mean,
And what makes it also a shame is because DICE put it. You can tell the effort DICE put into the gameplay
totally.
itself. The gameplay itself,
it flows really well.
yeah, it looks great. The visuals are amazing, especially in the space combat. The sound design is
Oh
great.
my god, yeah.
And the class system is so much better than it was in the first Battlefront in 2015, which was.
And I mean, it all leads back to that one thing where it's like, do we need to get rid of microtransactions as a whole?
That's the thing.
And honestly, I'm going to answer this right now. No, we don't.
No.
Like, getting rid of microtransactions as a whole is just never going to work. Like,
No.
developers will find ways around it, even if we outlaw loot
It is
boxes.
costing more and more these days to make games on these new software systems.
Exactly.
It is costing a lot. We are still fortunate enough to be in a generation where games still cost $60.
Because I can guarantee, and I know there will be people on the internet that say I'm wrong, but that's not that rare, that in some time, games prices will either go up or we're going to see an increased amount of stuff behind paywalls.
That's true.
It's going to be one or the other.
It's one or the other. You can't really have a combination of it.
Like, honestly, if I had it my way, you know, and this is something that will also never happen.
And to be fair, games that are like over $60 kind of exist right now in the terms of early access and season pass.
True. Although that's kind of once DLC starts to roll out.
Yeah.
But it's like, from my point of view, the way I would monetize a game, and granted this is, or prefer games to be monetized as both the consumer and as a developer. And obviously this is something that will never happen because it's really complex. But basically, I would divide the game up into as many little sections as possible. And this would obviously only work with a AAA game because you're not going to have enough people to buy every single section otherwise. But I would divide the game up to as many chunks as possible and be like, what do you want? Buy just that. Put a value on each thing. It could go over $200 to buy the entire thing. It wouldn't matter. Just let them buy exactly what they want. Say Halo 6 comes out and I only want to play the multiplayer. I only buy the multiplayer.
Yeah, that's definitely a model for the future.
It's not far from being implemented.
Oh yeah, it'll never. It won't be implemented for a long time. But if it does ever get implemented, you can at least say I told you so.
Dear Internet, mark this date.
Yeah. Anyway, there are different models that people have been using, and Battlefront 2 is just the like penultimate example these days of the negative. Right. And they're replace it. You can't. The thing is, in that game, it's so engineered around the loot box model that you can't get rid of it.
Well, that's the issue. A lot of times, the gameplay
Yeah.
is like designed around this monetization model, and that's kind of the way you're supposed to do it. Like you should design your gameplay and your game around your model of monetization. Jesus Christ. But obviously, you have to make sure it's a good model. Yeah. Like, you can't, if you do it the other way around and design your gameplay and then put this similar model in there, you get to the point where you have to figure out a way to slot in stuff to be in a loot box, and it doesn't work.
You know what happens when people prioritize that monetization process instead? You know what gets thrown out the window? Gameplay gets thrown out the window every time that somebody prioritizes the entirety of a microtransaction system.
Not even microtransaction system, just monetization in general.
Take the FIFA franchise. They are so dependent. Their entire basis of selling that game is based on
not even just that. Almost any sports game now. Like, I'll admit it, I play 2K a lot. I play MLB The Show. They have a ton of microtransactions in them.
Oh, yeah?
I'm not proud of it. I bought like some of the coin packages in NBA 2K18 because I wanted to get above 70.
That's true. Like, that's it's like the only way to advance in that game in a like more competitive background if you want to play like lots of online or anything like that is to pay actual money.
Yeah.
Which is, to me, that's not great.
Well, the unfortunate thing is...
And it doesn't really like change... I know, yeah, I don't want to interrupt you. But that doesn't... They never change their gameplay.
Right. Well, the really unfortunate thing is, and this is like with the new 2K League that got formed this year too, for like this grand esports thing for 2K, you can't really, like, obviously they changed this for the for the tryouts, like the official tryouts, they had everyone play with base characters. So as to not like have the situation where someone spent $3 million on the game, was a 90 overall, and was suddenly very, like, just had the advantage.
Oh, yeah.
But in order to qualify for it, you still had to play the Pro-Am, which is like this online team-based thing. Mm-hmm. And it's a fun mode, but unless you spent the money, you're not going to do well in Pro-Am, and you're not going to even get called to a tryout.
That's true.
So it's like they did a good thing by doing it that way, but they don't level the playing field enough in Pro-Am to really make a difference.
Yeah, that's definitely correct on that regard.
Shout out to all the 5 people that play 2K that'll probably watch this.
Hey, we are very unique around here. We go to every gamer.
What do we miss? Okay, we're just missing Dark Souls, so I don't think we can really cut that into this.
Nah.
Next time we'll figure something out.
Next time difficulty. No. Anyway, moving on to this. Obviously, you can't replace a business model that revolves the entire game. But I will throw out a game.
Throw out the whole game?
I'd throw out a system that you could do to maybe fix that. This is just my idea. This, again, like his, might not get implemented in a long amount of time.
Watch there be 2 games announced right after this that have both models.
Hey. Anyway, it's like we've said before with Overwatch. If it's purely cosmetic, then it's fine. But another thing is, if it's going to affect gameplay, maybe just have separate modes. Like, there's in Injustice 2, which is a very recent fighting game that came out, there were loot boxes, or basically like mother boxes.
It's kind of like, it's the standard now. There's them in almost every AAA game that exists.
The mother box got you gear that directly affected gameplay, but only in a certain mode. Right. You had to do player versus player mode. If you went into ranked match, it turned off all of your gear. In tournament modes, it turns off all of that gear augmentation, and then just becomes cosmetic. Right. Which is a great model, in my opinion. And I feel like
is true.
Other games could do that.
Well, it's very much an idea where you kind of have to level the playing field in some way, shape, or form. You can either turn off every single buff, which is what that did, or the way that I would probably do that in that scenario is I would just say, okay, whatever one person has, the other person gets. Whatever that person has, the other person gets. Whoever has more is just the playing field is leveled to that player. Yeah. Basically, so that the player who is used to playing with all this powerful gear, because we don't want to take away power from the player ever. I sound like GameStop. But it's like it's a bad idea because players are going to feel that they're going to be salty. I mean, it's just true. But by raising the power of the player that doesn't have the stuff, it not only will get them on an even playing field, but it also could incentivize them. You get my point. It incentivizes the other player who is now trying out this powerful gear to maybe go out and buy it. It helps the developer by getting them more sales, and it helps the player by keeping it competitive.
Yeah, and we've also discussed the randomization of some of these items. Like in Overwatch, when you buy a cosmetic, it's random. It's random what you get.
Although, you can turn stuff you don't want into gold and buy specific stuff.
That's true. There are games like that have random, and you can re-roll or change it into what you want. But there are also games like Titanfall 2, where you directly buy what you want. Yeah. Like, there's no randomization. It's just under that in-game currency.
Well, those things are the ones where you literally, instead of buying a loot box and getting the currency from stuff you don't want, you just buy the currency.
Yeah, and it affects gameplay, but not as much.
Right.
It's still, because it's a big game and it has different systems to it that even out and balance, and that's big kudos to the developers of that game and everything related to that. Yeah.
Good job, Titanfall.
Good job, Titanfall 2, for having a good business model. It's just a shame you got overlooked by other end forms.
They came out at a bad time.
Came out at a bad time. Good story mode too, by the way. If you haven't played it, play
Hashtag play
Titanfall 2.
Titanfall 2. Damn it. But it almost to go back on that though, back to the gambling thing. That's one of the ways that it, and it's very much a way that these loot crates, these loot boxes, not loot crate, something else.
To be fair,
these loot boxes kind of turn into this gambling model, because not only are you buying these items that potentially come out randomly, but in stuff where you can disenchant it and turn it into something else, you're kind of gambling whatever money you put into it to get a certain amount of dust or gold out of it. If you just disenchant everything, that is.
Yeah. So yeah, I just hate it when games like Call of Duty World War II is a game that I'm going to talk about because it had a lot. It, like Battlefront 2, had a lot of hype surrounding it, especially towards its release, because it was taking it back to the origins of this franchise, and it had a great opening level that was showcased.
Oh yeah, because everybody got to try it.
Yeah,
I think at one point.
Yeah, it was D-Day, the D-Day level.
Yeah,
that was
right.
That
was in the trailer
fantastic.
too. That was in the trailer.
Yeah, it was fantastic. That was the best part of that game, was having that level in the campaign.
For their sake, I should hope it was, considering that's probably one everyone's going to think about.
Yeah, but anyway, they had loot boxes directly, not only ones that you can show to people within a public lobby, but also just ones that affected gameplay, again, directly and in a serious manner. So it was so it's considered that pay-to-win model instead of that earn-to-win. And you couldn't, and I assume there was an in-game currency.
There probably was.
Yeah, like I haven't played the game too much, but I know what it's about, and I've seen my roommate play it a lot. And the online mode is not very different from Call of Duty in the past. It's,
well, of course, it's
you
not
get a
gonna abandon their multiplayer model.
Yeah, they're not gonna. Yeah, but the fact that it would looked like it was gonna have different like gunplay or different items and kill streak stuff, and it did to a certain extent, but it sacrificed an interesting story that it could have had into becoming that standard Call of Duty. Like, one hero takes on the entirety of the war and wins it all.
Please tell me the hero didn't kill Hitler.
I don't think so.
Okay, good.
He single-handedly beat a bunch of people, but he made the AI was extremely easy. The gameplay itself was unvaried. You went and you defended a point, and then that was it. And
welcome to Destiny.
Yeah, but like, literally, you couldn't move on until you got to a certain point. It was like very fixed, very like linear to the point of just disgust. There wasn't like interesting AI like in the Halo franchise.
I would point out that there's a difference between linear gameplay and like linear story.
Yeah, linear story, but the gameplay was also linear because you're just earning You're just going to be earning loot boxes. There's not like, you don't have a rank, or like some games past you would have like a certain rank that you get by playing a lot of games online, and you would earn a level. Like, in Halo Reach, you could earn different levels.
You could earn Inheritor,
ranks.
I think was the highest one.
Yeah, an Inheritor, or like stuff that has a name and a title that make you feel like you've played the game more than everyone else and gotten better.
Field Marshal grade 2 right here. Hi, how you doing?
Hey. But anyway, it's just one of those things where you don't feel accomplished for playing the game.
You don't get a sense of accomplishment.
You don't get a sense of pride or accomplishment. So there was like no way to come back to it. No replay value.
I mean,
because they sacrificed it all for the people who would get hooked on the microtransactions.
And I mean, I will admit, we know this, that Call of Duty has been prioritizing multiplayer for a long time now. Multiplayer and zombies, it seemed, for most of their games for a certain stretch. I will admit, I didn't hate the Black Ops 2 campaign.
I mean, I just thought it was like that standard fare that Call of Duty always does.
But I mean, the reality is, it all comes down to the myth of the $60 game, though, and it's a very fancy way to say it. But games just they aren't going to be valuable. Like, I'd even argue right now, most AAA games are not worth $60 to buy. They're worth about $100.
Sea of Thieves is not worth $60.
That's the other way.
Sea of Thieves is not worth $60. That's a AAA game that came out. It's not worth it. You heard it here.
Well,
probably for the sixth time.
I think that's another psychological thing, though, to do with gamers, where it's like, we see $60, we think this game's going to be good, or at least it's a AAA standard type of game. It makes it so that if a AAA studio puts out a game that's not meant to be a high-quality, big release like a Call of Duty or a Halo or a Destiny, it's meant to be just like, here's a fun little game like Sea of Thieves kind of is. It's meant to be a fun little sandbox that a lot of streamers are taking advantage of.
I'm going to tell you right now, the modern fighting game is extremely reliant on downloadable content and new characters, and most people who buy them know going in that there's going to be that additional, and they might not want to buy the character, a new character.
They just play their own.
Yeah, they play their own. They might be like, yeah, I'm never going to get downloadable content for this game, and I'm fine with that. The game already has a good roster.
Exactly.
And that's fine. Like, I bought...
I mean, Overwatch does the opposite.
I spent $100 on Injustice 2 because I knew that I wanted the downloadable content that it would come with. And by buying that ultimate version for $120, it promised... No, not 120, 100. It promised that you would get all the downloadable content that came out for free.
Right.
So that's like that kind of initial model, almost like an early access.
Yeah.
But that's more so in the done right category because they're telling you up front, hey, you're paying more for this instead of paying more for something that you almost don't know about or whether it's going to be fun or not.
But it still is a thing though, where it's like if Sea of Thieves, I can't even say it now. The pirate game,
rarest pirate.
Say the pirate game was released for $30.
Yeah.
Would many people like? I feel like a lot of people would just kind of pass it off and be like, "Yeah, it's not a
no." I would
game.
no. If it was $30, I would have bought it.
Well, right. I know we would have bought it, but that's because we've seen people play it.
That's true.
Like, if it wasn't for all that publicity, would people buy it? If it was something under the $60, and maybe that's not the best example, but you get my point. If you saw a shooter on the market, say there was a Call of Duty title that was like a lesser grade Call of Duty title that just came out and it was for $30.
Yeah.
Do you think that game would be as like hyped up in the beginning?
Maybe it might be. It kind of depends on like what the gameplay is, what it brought to the table that might change up the franchise. We can't group games under this because every game's different.
Well, of course, but I'm saying the standard is if your game is a full game, a AAA high quality game, people expect it to be released at $60.
A lot of people do. Yeah. I prefer that not to be.
I prefer it not to be too.
But
I would rather the game just be priced whatever it's priced.
Yeah, I mean,
well, obviously I'd rather not be too expensive, but you get my point.
Yeah. It's like we said before, you either increase the value of that $60 game or you include more of those
right.
monetary things.
Here's the thing.
All I'm asking is that people be honest about them.
Right. Well, here's the other thing. It's like you look at a game like Halo 5, and obviously that game has its critics, but
it has flaws, yes.
But at the same time, every single DLC for that game was free. Think of it that way.
That is true.
Think
Forge mode was free.
Forge mode was free. Every map pack was free. Everything was free in that game. I'd argue that in the end, that game's value was probably over $100.
They did create a lot of content for free value.
Exactly. And so it's like, I would personally not want to do that, but they had their own form of loot boxes for the Warzone mode. That's what it was.
Warzone mode, that's right.
I almost forgot the name. But it's like they had their own version of loot boxes, and you know what? That's how they monetize the game. And I'm fine with people buying that all they want.
Hey, if you want to play a mode where your purchases matter in terms of microtransactions, play Warzone.
If you don't, play Arena.
There you go. See, that games like that divide sections into stuff where it matters and doesn't, and are honest about it. That's the kind of business model that people want to see.
And I mean, it's obviously you don't want to divide your community, but they didn't. They didn't do that to the same extent. At least they didn't say like you have to pay this fee to play Warzone.
That's true. See, we didn't know about like Battlefront 2 or Call of Duty World War 2.
Yeah. Warlords?
Warlords. No, Call of Duty World War 2's systems until like day of. Or a couple days after release when people started.
When it was too late.
When it was too late, and by the time that it's already hit markets and everything like that. We can't call them out for it when it's already done because once it's on the market, their hands are off, they're working on the next project. So it's stuff like that. And then there are games where it's completely unnecessary. Like,
of course.
Like Middle-earth Shadow of War.
Yeah.
It had it, but it was for a single-player mode.
Right, and that's where the argument I said before, where it's like, I'm okay with it in single-player games for the simple reason that it doesn't matter.
Yeah, but the thing is, with that system, it wasn't to like go against a grind like it was in Clash of Clans. It was just to get better stuff to make you feel like you had a more powerful orc army.
Right, and I mean, honestly, though...
Some people might like that.
It technically does affect the gameplay, but it's still a single-player game.
Yeah,
if I want to beat that game on my own, which I have, I didn't buy a single loot box.
Yeah, you don't have to. If you can ignore it, that's all right. So, but then there are people
Let's
who
say
are
I
like,
want Blade of Galadriel or whatever special weapon they have in it.
Yeah.
I can do that.
You can buy what you want directly, and that's okay. But it's just hard when some, like, they really encourage that loot box system.
Yeah, it's like... let's imagine this and pray that doesn't happen. Say Fable 4 comes out. I'm just using a game that's never going to come out so it doesn't actually happen and I have to be like, why did I call this? But let's say Fable 4 came out. And in that game, you have like a leveling system. It's been a while since I played a Fable game, but you get my point. let's say that in a microtransaction, you could buy a loot box that gave you a random amount of experience points based on, or a different amount of skill points even, based on just luck. Yes, that does make it go faster, but it's also really annoying, especially, and this would be the big thing, what if they made it harder to level up also? That would be the point where I'm like, no, that's bad, stop it.
Yeah.
But if it's just in there to be like, hey, you can get this random weapon that has this cool effect, I don't care.
If it's little things like that, but then like think about systems where you have to pay money to level up.
That's annoying.
That would get annoying quick.
Well, are you paying money or you're paying in-game currency? Like, let's picture a game like, you've played the KOTOR games.
Yeah.
Obviously, this isn't
Knights
true
of
with
the
them.
Republic, for those of you who don't know.
If you haven't played them, play them. They're cheap and they're fun.
This is the third time we've told you to play a game, so
Take our advice. We know good games.
Take at least one of them.
Yeah, pick one. We don't care which one. Just try it.
Say in the comments if you picked it up and liked it.
I'm going to comment now, literally, that I've tried all of them. But let's say that in that game, in the real games, obviously, you don't have to pay to level up. But let's say you have to spend like 60 credits each time you level up a character. Yes, that's credits that you don't want to spend on leveling up a character, but it's credits that you're going to have.
That's true. There's definitely a lot of credits that you're going to have, but I'd be annoyed with it if it
I'd be
was
annoyed with it too.
real
but
money.
I'd be annoyed with it, obviously. But
There's-
yes, if
there's
it was
some
literally a pay $5 to level up Karth, now I'd be annoyed.
Yeah, it'd be weird like if there was an expansion that came out with like a level cap and it's like I have to buy the expansion in order to get my character up to the level that I'm seeing at multiplayer levels. That's
See, that's the difference.
Yeah.
If it's a multiplayer game, then yes.
like an MMORPG, I'm saying.
Well, Destiny had a similar thing like that, but they covered for it. Destiny, when the Taken King came out, and I think they also did the same thing for when the
Iron something.
Lord of Iron Wolves, the Siva one.
Something.
It was an underwhelming expansion.
Yeah.
But when both those came out, I believe they increased the level cap, and they also did it with the first Destiny 2 expansion with the Curse of Osiris. But the thing was, yes, it increased your level cap, and you could get other abilities and yada yada yada. But the big difference was in multiplayer for Destiny, although you still see your level, the stats and everything are matched. There's no like. Player X doesn't have increased strength much beyond what their gear gives them.
That's
the big
true.
difference is the gear and whatever class you're playing.
Yeah, that's true. So there are just tons of different microtransaction systems in games nowadays.
You can never say that right every time you say it.
My words are bad. I've already said it. That's my quote.
Keyword's bad.
Keyword's bad. But anyway, there's just been tons of microtransaction systems, especially in modern gaming. Some have been good, some have been bad, some have been really bad, and
some kind of just been there.
Some kind of just been there. The question is not so much to get rid of them. The question is to do them right.
Right.
Because when done right, they do not take away from gaming experience.
Hell, they add to them in many cases.
Yeah.
I would argue that Overwatch's loot crate system is something that adds an extra value of enjoyment to games.
Yeah.
Well, not to games, but to the game itself.
Yeah, you frustrated with not getting what you wanted in a loot box from leveling up? Buy what you want. It's not so much with
Right.
It's not so much with like as if it destroys the gaming experience or is prioritized over a good gameplay experience.
Yeah.
Then it becomes an issue, and
Well, you
then
know
it
what?
becomes predatory, and that's when it becomes just exploitative.
Exploitative is the word you were trying to say.
Yeah, what he said.
Not exploitative.
That one, but it's one of those situations, you know.
Right. And I mean, I'd argue that the biggest thing, obviously, comes down to is when your game is like so designed around these microtransactions and these loot boxes that there's no other way to play it.
Yeah.
Like, I can play Hearthstone free to play. Yes, I won't be able to play the top meta deck, but I can still make a pretty good deck.
Yeah, and think about it. Once you've spent the money to get like to that pay-to-win system on those kind of games, then what's the point of playing it more? You've gotten to that point.
Well,
No replay value.
yes and no. In certain games, like, I know people call Hearthstone and card games pay to win, but once you buy the packs, you still have to build the right deck. You still have to beat the people you're playing.
But if I spent $1,500 on Battlefront 2 just to unlock everything.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. Because it has a level where it kind of levels out, because it's like you get to the point where when you first buy it, everyone else who's bought it is already up here.
Yeah.
And you're down here with all the people who didn't buy it. You're going to be kicking ass the entire time, just destroying everyone to be like, okay, there's no competition. You get up to where everyone's bought the good stuff, and you're like, holy shit, I'm actually being competitive now.
Yeah. But then, that's just kind of based on if you're spending the money for it. Like we said before, it's your money, spend it the way you want. But to be honest, if you're spending $700 to thousands of dollars on mobile games and video games, then instead of food or
What's food?
yeah, that's a good point. Instead of food or stuff like that, then it becomes an issue.
Yeah,
Then it becomes like because when you buy a game, it's almost like a contract between you and the developers, because you're being like, hey, I'm giving you money to enjoy what you've made.
Right.
So you have to trust on them to make it an enjoyable experience, and they have to trust you for trusting in them for spending your own money.
Trusting you for trusting. Sure.
Yeah, they trust in you to enjoy what they've made and what
Exactly.
they've put time into.
Exactly. And I mean, it's like I said with Overwatch. It's cosmetic. It doesn't matter. And that's the best way to do it. But if you have to sell something related to your game design, you don't want to sell something cosmetic, find some way where at least in the competitive ranks of your game, it doesn't matter.
Or at least make it honest. Make it, if you're gonna make a system that you know is a little off kilter or might have some controversy to it, tell your gamers about it before you release the game.
It's like a lot of games now, especially stuff made by Blizzard.
Yeah.
We seem to really love Blizzard on here, and I don't blame us. It's great.
Hey, Blizzard has a good connection with their player base.
Exactly. But it's where they have this rarity system involved. Common, uncommon, rare, epic, legendary.
Yeah.
And there's more to that too, but you get my point. By having that rarity system in there, you can publish the odds of every single loot box.
Yeah.
Of course, most games will adjust the odds if, like, say it's been a while since you've gotten a legendary, to be like, okay, they have to get a legendary in the next 3 packs.
Yeah.
Like, it just has to happen. But at the same time, it's like you see the general odds, and that makes you feel better because you expect it.
Yeah, it's trustworthy. They tell you how it's gonna be.
Right.
There's nothing.
Like in Hearthstone, they tell you every single pack is guaranteed 1 rare card at least. And I'm like, okay, when I get that, I feel bad because I got the worst possible one, but I still know that they're being honest.
Yeah. Then that just becomes less of a developer issue and more of a probability issue.
Right, and I mean, it's like I feel better buying a pack because I know I'm guaranteed at least 1 decent card.
And yeah. So, like we've said, there are good examples, bad examples.
Partridge in a pear tree examples.
If you have any of your opinions on microtransactions and everything related to that, please tell us. And we'll listen. We'll talk to them.
Yeah.
We'll bring up some comments maybe that we liked and could add to this.
Exactly.
At any more point, because we love opinions and we love debating with people as well. So if you feel like we said
After all, we do
anything
with
that
each
you
other.
don't agree with, then
Please let us know.
Let us know.
Let us know even like which games you think do it well, which games you think did it poorly. You can even repeat the ones we said.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Or say maybe a personal experience you had with microtransactions that was either good or bad. So
I'd be a little surprised if anyone said that you were good.
hey, some people might say like, oh, I can't say people.
Some people.
Some people might say like, hey, there was a certain time that I got like 3 legendaries in one Overwatch loot box, and I'll be like, I'm jealous.
Can I have your luck?
Hey, who knows? We love to hear from you guys, and thank you for listening to us. This has been the Experience Network. Experience Network.
Can't even say our own title right.
I know. I've been off all day. Tongue twisters.
This has been EXPN, since he can't say it.
EXPN, the Experience Network. Thank you so very much, and we'll see you next time.
Goodbye, everyone.